Hey everyone, this is Austin Schur here with We Write About Music, and today I'm speaking with Jimmy Karamanis of Ultrafox. The
Hello there.
band has the band has just released their seriously amazing self-titled debut album, recently out. I personally am loving every single moment of it. Jimmy, I can't thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing? How's life?
I'm doing good. Life is stressful, the
Yeah,
world situation notwithstanding. Got a lot of
yes.
stuff going on, trying to get the band going, and I'm feeling pretty good though. I'm like a good 7 out of 10.
You know what? You really can't ask for much more than a 7 out of 10 these
No,
days.
7 out of 10 is pretty good, I think, for what we're dealing with.
You sound confident about it. So as long as you're okay with it and you're getting through day to day with all the craziness of just life, then
Yeah,
I think you're on the right track.
I try not to pay attention to it. Keyword
Yeah,
try.
I think they call that disassociation.
Yeah,
But just a
yeah, they
little
do,
bit.
they do.
Well, let's get right into the music here because that is
Sure.
what we're here to talk about. Before I get into the ultra specifics of how much I love it, I want to talk a little bit about the lyrics.
Hmm.
It's almost difficult to pay attention to the lyrics because there's so much happening otherwise.
Yeah,
So let's put the focus on that for a second. Is
sure.
there sort of like an all encompassing message of the record?
Hmm. You know what? I no. Like
Okay.
no,
Or
because
does
I
it
mean,
need to be?
you've got songs about uh, this is a it's a let's put it this way. There's a song about an island of chocolate, right?
Yeah,
So obviously, if there was a message to the album, that would kind of be completely separate from it. So I kind of took every song and just kind of sang whatever suited the mood.
yeah,
There's a song about a cowboy duel.
sure.
There's some that are, I guess, a bit more, I don't want to use the word poetic, but like a little more thought provoking, I suppose. And there's
Yeah.
some that are just like, this is about an island of chocolate.
Hey, you sing
So,
what you know about. You sing what you know
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So no,
I've
that's
been through
totally cool. I
that.
I'm of the belief that an album doesn't need to have like, like we're talking about climate change, we're talking about this, we're talking about that, like
No.
whatever you're feeling. I'd say 95% of music listeners don't even make connections to lyrics anyway. It's all about how music makes them feel.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
I
whatever you're
agree with
happy
that.
with.
I would agree with
Let's
that for sure.
let's okay, let's please talk about the production on this record. Comes
Hmm.
in at around 30 minutes even, just about, and it is crisp, it is clean, it is just amazing. And for those that haven't listened yet, it's like a jazz fusiony pop masterpiece of epic proportions, and I don't use the
Hell
word
yeah.
epic often. So I'll just say right now everyone should listen to it, but I want to hear more about the production and how it all really came together.
Okay. Well, I guess that kind of starts where the band started. We're all jazz students at a university in Montreal called Concordia.
Got it.
That's where we all met. In December of 2019, we started a small like groove band, just kind of getting the vibe.
Sure.
With the plan to record an album like that March or like that
Oh,
spring, let's say.
perfect timing.
Yeah, exactly. So within about a month or so of us starting, it kind of all fell apart because we couldn't see each other and the whole bullshit happened. So we never got to do that.
Yeah.
So fast forward a bit to when we were able to see each other, which was I guess like June of like around June-ish of that same year of 2020. Now I'm like time has no meaning anymore, as everyone
No.
keeps saying. But yeah, around that time I was like, okay, you know
True.
what? Let's get in, let's do the songs, and let's try and get this album out. Like I wanted it to get it out in the spring, but obviously that's not going to happen. So let's just make it happen as fast as possible. So the plan was to just get as tight as possible on like I think the 4 or 5 tunes that we had at the time,
Hmm.
and write two more within the span of like a month or two. Get in the studio, and because we have been practicing, it would just be like 2 or 3 days in the studio and like bang out the whole thing right away. So that's what ended up happening. And around that time, I met Will Poulain and his brother and Matt, who are the guys who run the studio where we recorded it at. It's a place called the Sud-West Recording in Montreal. Man, it's first of all the vibe in there was just the second I walked in, I was like, this is the place.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just tell just the way it was set up, the welcoming environment. Their sound is excellent, and it's
Sure.
just a big room.
Nice.
Whereas something with this band is that all these songs were actually takes. Like
Oh,
they weren't. The drummer went in, did her track, then the guitar went in.
really?
Yeah, it's all just like live in the room.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, which was I thought essential to getting the sound that we
Right.
have. So I had to find a studio that had that big open space. Not only
Sure.
had the open space, but had all the necessary equipment
Yeah.
to get horns and all that without bleeding into each other's mics. And I think
Sure.
they knocked it out of the park, personally.
Yeah. No, seriously, like I'm going to keep talking it up and talking it up as we keep going with
Awesome.
this.
Yeah,
But
please do.
no, that's really cool. That's exactly the type of stuff that I wanted to know. And again, it's not just you as the sole member of the band. I would love for you to shout out
Oh
all the
yeah,
members and maybe say what they do and give
yeah.
them
Well,
some credit.
I would. If okay, let me preface this whole thing by saying
Sure.
I'm the singer, trumpet player, and I play a bit of guitar. I am like by a long shot the weakest member of this band. Like music,
Stop.
like it's just a fact. Like it's just the way we go. Joe on bass. This guy, first of all, I didn't even know he played bass when when we were playing when we were starting this band. Emily, who's the guitar player, suggested Joe for bass, and I'm like, Joe
Okay.
plays bass. I knew him as a guitar player, which he's really good at guitar, but I
Sure.
just didn't know he played bass. So he comes into the first rehearsal, and we're like, okay, well, let's just see what you can do. And he just starts immediately, like,
It's like, whoa.
yeah, yeah. He walks in with like this beautiful like PRS bass. I'm just like, okay, the guy knows what the
All
hell he's
right.
doing.
You're
And it was
hired.
just, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was love at first sight with him. Christina on drums too. I mean, she's out of control. Justin, who's the sax player,
Hmm.
to me is kind of like, I don't want to say the highlight because maybe that kind of puts everyone else on a lower pedestal, but he's really what glues the sound together, I find. Like having that kind of consistent sax sound through like a jazzy tune or
Sure.
a poppy tune or like a weird whatever the hell Chocolate Island is. Or having
Sure,
having
sure.
that constant thing to like latch onto, and especially to have him who's like just an incredible talent on the instrument
Right.
is really great. And then there's Brian on keys, who actually only showed up maybe a month before the record even.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, we need a keyboard player. I knew I wanted one from the beginning, but like they're hard to find, man. Keyboard wizards,
Sure.
they're like not easy to come by. Let alone who have the work ethic to learn like 7 songs in a month.
Yeah, that's no easy task. Um,
Yeah,
I
he
want to go
nailed it.
back to what you just said about the saxophone. And
Sure.
well, of course, I do feel that it takes over at times and it sort of
Mm,
becomes the center of the song.
mm.
I personally enjoy that because it adds a cohesiveness to the record as a whole. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It ties together the first song to the last song, having that constant in there while everything else is changing, but having like the sax come in and kind of do its thing,
Mm.
it makes it feel more like a sticky album rather than just isolated singles, which
Yeah.
in a world of single releases as opposed to album releases, it's something that is super appreciated as like
Hmm.
a music listener. So
Another thing about the sax is that this might be a little presumptuous, but like as soon as people hear a trumpet or a saxophone, they'll automatically classify the music as jazz.
oh, always.
It's just like, oh, there's a trumpet in it, it must be jazz, even
Yep.
if it's just not jazz at all.
Yep.
For instance, like the second song on the album, Quick Drive Through,
Mhm.
that's more of a like synth wave kind of, I want to say poppy thing,
Sure.
right? But then there's a sax in there out of nowhere. Like that's not something you hear a lot in that type of music.
uh,
Does then it then become jazz? You know what I mean? The
I
sax gives this nice mystique about, is it jazz? Is it not? I like that.
I understand what you're saying though. I just think music nowadays, because of where technology has taken it and the whole production side of things, no one is sticking to one genre anymore.
Mm.
There's no just pop music. There's no just R&B music.
Yeah.
Everything is just this melting pot of everything.
Mm.
And it's, I mean, thankfully there are actual, people playing instruments in your music rather than just like, patches that you put in or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that to the unseasoned music listener, having a sax or a trumpet, they will classify it as jazz, but they need to know that it's jazz fusion. Like, what would you call the record?
We've been calling it electro jazz.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's
Sure.
hard not to sound like pretentious when you're asked to like describe what kind of not that I'm faulting the question at all.
No,
It's
no,
just
no.
hard to like
No,
when
and
people
I
ask.
get that. And
Yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot and be like, I
No,
need
no,
to
no,
know what it is, because it really is a little bit of everything.
no.
And
Mhm.
depending on who you talk to, they're going to interpret it in a different way.
I
So,
really wanted to evoke like Zeppelin is one of my favorite all-time favorite bands, and
yeah,
whenever I was listening to them when I was younger, I'd be like, man, there are no two tracks.
right.
I mean, now in retrospect, there are, but were no two tracks that were kind of the same. You've got
Yeah,
a one. They just span all kinds of genres as a band. Like
totally.
they can be, I guess, classified as like rock and roll if you
Yeah,
really want to like put it under the umbrella. But then they've got a reggae tune.
sure.
Then they've got Kashmir. Then they've
Right.
got like they've got all
They
these
got a
other
little bit of
tunes.
everything.
And I wanted to kind of do that as well, where it's like you don't really know what to expect when we play.
Right. But for a group like yourselves that are, just starting out, it's not like you haven't been playing music before. You're all trained in whatever you can do. It's a perfect jumping off point for the future.
Hmm.
You don't have to stick to one thing. You've sort of planted the seeds in every song that you've made, and you
Hmm.
could take one song off the album and just do a second follow up on
Hmm.
that style.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's something we
yeah,
screw around with too. Yeah.
totally. And not to jump too far into the future here, obviously, because who knows what's going on at any time.
Yeah.
And I want to keep the focus on the record, but do you guys have any idea where you may take it in the future as far as experimentation goes, as far as like changing up the sound or picking a different lane?
Well, these songs, at least most of them, were kind of written before the band really formed.
Oh, okay.
Like in a way. I mean, two of them are covers, but like they're covers of songs no one would have ever heard of.
Sure.
Like the Toxic Caves is from like a Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic Spinball. It's like the first level of Sonic
I
Spinball.
did not know that, but that's
Yeah, exactly.
amazing.
And then Midnight in Madrid is a tune that one of our professors wrote that we
Oh,
adapted into like a hip hop thing. He wrote it as like a bossa nova, and
that's
we
really
made it.
cool.
Yeah. So a lot of the songs were there before. For the second record, which we're already working on, uh, I've kind of instead wanted to happen more organically.
Hmm.
So we've got about 2.5 songs already ready
Okay.
or being made for the second
Sure.
release, and those are came from just like a jam. I was like, okay, you start with a melody or a chord progression or a beat or whatever, and then each person in turn will layer something on top of that.
Yeah.
So now the music's being created a bit more like we know what our sound is, we know what each other's strengths are, and now the music's being created really from the ground up. It's not like, hey, I have this riff and I have this tune.
Okay.
Here's what it is. Let's play it. So far, I mean, the two songs that we have going are pretty sweet.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt it for a second. So wait,
Yeah.
let me try to like take a lot from what you just said.
Mhm.
Instead of one person, like in a, I guess a normal band, it's like, hey, I was like in the shower and I came up with this melody, or I was,
Mhm.
playing around on the bass and I came up with this line. For
Mhm.
you guys, does it start from like, hey, let's all gather in a room and kind of just like riff off each other and then take a little piece of like, ooh, that sounded good 10 minutes in, and then we'll form a song around that. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, that's what's happening for the next
Right,
record, let's say.
right. Okay, okay.
So yeah, we're definitely moving into a place where I don't want to say to people like, "Hey, I wrote this song.
Yeah,
We're gonna play this."
yeah,
At first you need something like that because,
yeah.
or else it's just a whole cluster. Am I
Yeah,
allowed,
totally.
am I allowed to
You
say?
can
Am
say
I allowed to
whatever you
swear on
want.
this?
Yeah, you can
Okay,
do whatever.
good. I was like, how
you're,
PG are
you're
we
good.
here?
You're good.
But yeah, it's just a mess of like everyone
Sure.
trying to figure each other out. So if you have a foundation to start with, which for me was like this first album,
Right.
now we know what we can do. Now we know what we're good at. We've defined ourselves as much as possible with a sound.
Yeah.
So now let's see where we can take that. You know, that's kind of what
I totally
we're.
get that.
Yeah.
And going off again of there being so many different genre influences and there just being a little bit of everything,
Hmm.
and also you guys all being music students, which obviously means you've surrounded yourself in life with good music.
Hmm.
Who are some of your inspirations? Who are you not necessarily modeling your sound off of, but just really like who inspired you to start?
To start on the album or just in general, like
In
musical.
general, what did your parents have on the car?
Oh god, my parents had Greek music on, so
Yeah,
no.
totally.
There is a lot of like world music in my past, let's say, but I can only really speak for myself here and say that some of the bands I really uh, kind of want to model the sound after, maybe not necessarily the type of music, but the sound.
Yeah.
I really love the Unknown Mortal Orchestra.
Yes.
I've
One of
liked
my
them
favorite
since,
bands of all time.
dude, those first two albums to me
Yeah.
are some of the like most incredible music that's come out in the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like maybe a bit more now. I think I'm getting a bit old. I think the first one came out in like 2011 or something, but that they
Just
are
about.
excellent. I love
Yeah.
the sound. I love the variety in those albums. Like
Yeah.
later on, I find they got a bit poppy. I still like it, but like the first two, man, solid.
Have you seen them live by chance?
Yeah, I did. I saw them
One
here in
of
Montreal.
the greatest
Yeah.
live shows of all
What
time.
a great show. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
good and it sounded like the album and I was not disappointed and I
Yeah.
was just like, yeah, it was a fantastic show.
And
So
I feel like as a jazz student, have you listened to any of the SB tracks that he puts out?
Yeah.
Those are
'cause
just a
it's fun.
blast.
It's fun because you're dealing with like a real like savant, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's made in a way where like the casual listener can't even understand how deep some of the chord progressions are.
Right.
You know, even me, like I still listen to Swim and Sleep now, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, what the hell progression is this? Like,
Yes.
what's going on? I know what's going on. I know how to play it. I know what it is, but I still don't understand it. You know, how do you write something like that?
I agree. And as a very novice guitar player myself, even attempting to just because like you hear it and you're like, oh, that seems very doable. And then you look at the tabs for it, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is going to take me a year to figure out. So
Yeah.
it is a lot more complex than you.
Yeah. It's just good, you know. I just so anyway, they are kind of, I'd say, in my top 3 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other stuff, you know, a lot of jazzers.
Sure.
I can name, you know, all of them, but you know,
It's
Wayne
all good.
Shorter. We talk about Miles. Talk about you know, whoever all these guys have definitely a say in the music for sure.
Definitely. Well, we can skip that because I can just, you know, it's a little bit of everything. What I do want to know though is that I like to hear this from people that I get to talk to that have kind of gone from having this idea of starting a band and making songs to actually putting out the record, because there's so much that happens in between. Is there something specifically that you've enjoyed the most about the process from start to finish? Because there's so many facets.
I mean, other than playing the music, I think kind of, I'm going to say pulling the strings has been really fun.
Yeah.
Like I'm really not a dictator type of band leader at all, but I know that my strengths lie in kind of the administrative and making sure that everyone's happy and like doing the thing. I like that.
Yeah.
Before music, well, I'm playing music forever, but before focusing on this band, I had a theater company.
Oh, wow.
So I ran a theater company for about 5-6 years. I wrote all the shows, directed all the shows. I never was in them. I didn't want to like be the star or anything.
Sure.
I just wanted to sculpt the product, let's say. So I really do enjoy being at the helm, but like in the shadows at the same time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I totally.
When we were
but
trying
it's
to
the
name
management
the band,
side.
Yeah, I love that. When we were trying to name the band, everyone was like, "Well, let's be Jimmy and the this or Jimmy and the that," and I'm like, "No, that puts too much on me. Like, it's not about me; it's about what we're creating together, right?"
I completely understand. I think there's something really rewarding about sort of being the behind the scenes person, and as much as a band doesn't thrive when someone is a dictator and says we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way. There still does need to be one person that steps in and be organizational. And because for those that don't know and just think bands just get famous or people hear their music, it's as much as a business as it is, you know, playing the music itself and actually getting everything together, booking studio time and who's going to produce it, who's going to mix it, who's going to do everything else. And to have a person like yourself to actually step up and do that, I'm sure that everyone is thankful for those duties. Because whether
it's like I was saying before with the like being sort of the weakest member musically, I make up for that by being the one who kind of just makes it happen.
Sure. I don't think
You know?
I would assume that they don't think you're the weakest musically.
No, I
There
just
needs to be a
know it's
level
true.
of okay. Whoa. The
But
first step is admitting it.
yeah. That's what it is. You know.
Funny. That's
Yeah.
really funny.
Yeah.
All right. So hypothetically speaking, what does the next year look like for the band in terms of maybe another release, maybe even getting out on the road and touring these songs?
Well, definitely another release. Like if I had my way, we'd have another record by I want to say March.
Okay.
Would be
Yeah.
ideal. The thing is, I'm in my last year of school now, and I've taken on a course load that, quite frankly, is insane. I just can't handle it.
I get it.
So
I get it.
finding time to do that, work, teach, and do the band is going to be challenging. But ideally, I'd like to have another record out by like spring, maybe early summer of next year.
Okay.
I'd like to do a video sooner rather than later.
Oh.
We've been talking to a couple of different people about doing like just nothing like, ridiculous, but just something, a performance video or something, to have. And honestly, to just keep doing interviews like this. Like this is my first one, but like try and just get the word out there. Like you're in LA, right?
Yep.
So this is like, to me, this is like huge. I'm talking to someone in LA about a record that I made in Montreal. Like it's just awesome, to start that process of kind of just talking about it with people who aren't local musicians.
I get that. But you have to see it from my end too. I get to talk to someone whose music I actually enjoy, because you would not. I mean, not to. I'm not going to sit here and shit.
You might want to
talk the
edit that
rest of the
last part
people.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. But no, seriously, you can only imagine the music that gets sent, and it's not up to standards, or it's not something that I would personally listen to.
Mhm.
But if you were to take a look through like my personal Spotify playlist, your guys' type of music would fit in perfectly.
Great.
And so
Well, that's good to hear.
hearing that type of music, and like, obviously I also have a close music friend community who I send the good stuff to, and they're going to be sent this album because I think they'd really enjoy it. So
that's great to hear.
Again, just fantastic, just really fantastic stuff. So all right, I've only got a couple more questions for you at this point.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Go ahead.
And because we're a music blog and we're always trying to put people on to good music, and we're almost at the end of this year and there's been so many incredible releases, what have you been listening to when you're not making music? What is in your playlists? Any albums that you could recommend?
Okay, let me whip out my phone real quick.
Please do.
All right, I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I don't listen to a lot of new music.
That's okay. You don't need to.
I just don't. It doesn't come up to me like often enough. I just, I'm in school for jazz.
Sure.
And to me, the heyday of jazz was like between the 40s and the 70s, So I listen to a lot of music from that time. But stuff that's recently been kind of on repeat. Well, I really like Bill Frisell. Do you know him?
I do not.
He's a guitarist. He's played with everybody. He's released like, I don't know,
He's like
70
a session guitarist?
He's a session player.
Okay.
But he's known for, he just plays with everybody. So I've listened to a lot of him. Thundercat's kind of new that I've been
Thundercat's
checking.
amazing.
Yeah, I've been checking out some Thundercat.
Yeah. Check all of it out. You'll love it.
Yeah, I just started on them last week and I was like,
nice. Oh yeah.
Okay, one band that kind of goes through phases, or two rather, I'll talk about these two. Like Daft Punk for me has been one of these things where every year I'll have like a few months where there's like an intense Daft Punk phase.
Yeah. You never grow out of that.
No. But like the fact that they broke up
God.
during COVID is like devastating. I was like, at least I'll get to see them, at least I'll get to go to a concert for them. And then I got fucked.
Yeah.
So them. Also the Alan Parsons Project. You know Alan Parsons Project?
Yeah, of course.
I fucking love the Alan Parsons Project. I love their music.
I think that's a band that a lot of people have heard of, but actually haven't like dove into themselves, but they should.
When I was younger, it was like, I got into them before getting into Pink Floyd.
Oh, okay.
So for a lot of people, it's Pink Floyd, and then they're like, "Oh, didn't Alan Parsons like produce The Wall?" I was like, "Yeah," or Dark Side of the Moon. Fuck, I forget now. But they know him as that, and I'm like, "Well, actually, the man's got his own project that, in my opinion, is like just better." And yeah, so I would highly recommend the Alan Parsons Project to anyone who has never like delved into them because they're out of control.
I agree. Have you listened to Mild High Club by chance?
Mild High Club? No. What's
Okay.
that?
So I'm going to recommend you this album because I think it came out like 2 weeks ago. It's called
Okay.
Going, Going, Gone. And it
All right.
actually reminded me a lot of your guys' record. It is sort of that jazz fusiony, little bit psychedelic at times, but ultimately just like pretty experimental stuff. They have
Listen,
three albums. This is their most recent one, but the first two are also fantastic. But I think this third one aligns with the music that you've made.
Mile High Club?
Mild,
Mild High
MILD.
Club.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Where are they from?
I think Los Angeles as well. I'm pretty
Cool.
sure. I actually found out about them through Unknown Mortal Orchestra, so it's funny that you
Oh
brought
yeah.
that up. Yeah,
Okay. So now you said the golden recommendation there.
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I
I'll
think you'll
definitely check
enjoy
that.
it. All right, Jimmy, I've got one more question for you,
Hmm.
and it's how I like to wrap all these up. Basically, the
Sure.
question here is for the person that is going to discover you guys from this, and for the
Hmm.
person that is going to listen to your music for the first time, what is an opening message that you'd like to say to them as they sort of enter into the world that you've created here?
Listen to it twice.
Yes.
Okay. Listen to it
Yes.
twice.
Yes.
I would say because the first time through you might be like, "The fuck is going on
Right.
here?" Like, okay, but on the second listen, it just starts to make sense. I find
Sure.
so. I think that's like a general rule in music. Like, don't
Yeah.
just write something off on first impression.
Yeah.
There's a lot of deepness to a lot of music that people just kind of take for granted. But this album, especially,
I
listen to it
agree. I
twice.
will fully back up that claim. And I will say,
Yeah,
hell, listen 3 or 4 times, maybe even
yeah.
5 times, whatever
I
makes you
think
happy.
if you listen to something twice, you're likely to listen to it
That is
for a
true.
while.
Yeah. But
Like
people
if
need to like have that instant impression of like, ooh, I've heard some things that I liked, and then they'll go back. And I think that they
yeah,
will actually have that. But especially when it comes to denser music like yourselves, and it's not like fully in your face,
hmm,
your brain does need a second to digest it and like be like,
yeah,
what did just happen? So
yeah, yeah.
awesome. Jimmy, thank you so much for
Hey,
taking the
thank
time
you.
out of your day. I sincerely appreciate it. And for everyone else out there, the self-titled Ultrafox album is out. Listen to that. Follow along with the band on all their social media. We'll have all the links in there. But I really just want to say thank you so much again. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Ciao.
Awesome. Bye bye.